Damson Idris, you star on the FX series Snowfall as Franklin Saint, who, after 4 seasons, has evolved from a low-level drug dealer to a drug kingpin in Los Angeles during the 1980s crack epidemic. Has it been emotionally challenging taking this character down such a dark road that gets darker and darker in many ways as the series has progressed?
Definitely, it's been emotionally challenging. I think the biggest thing is the correlation between real life. We filmed the show in LA, and for many of the seasons, I lived downtown, right next to Skid Row. So I saw the exact effect of what's happening in the show and how it's moved into 2021. And that's a great challenge, but also it forces us as a crew and as a cast to approach the story and tell it in its entirety with as much truth and respect as possible.
And being a British actor, and this is an American story. How much did you know about this story, about the crack epidemic, and how the U.S. government kind of either allowed it or participated in it?
It's funny. I always knew about the drug because I grew up in a South Central equivalent in London, but called Peckham. So I always knew about the drug and I knew about its effects, but the supposed government influence was something that was completely shocking to me. And it wasn't until I kind of looked up Gary Webb's Dark Alliance during my research of playing this character that I saw just how involved it was in its correlation to the Nicaraguan war and what that's done to many communities, particularly African Americans today. So it was completely shocking when that information was revealed to me, but at the same time, it was a revolution because it was me understanding how the system has held down so many who are in oppressive positions and how it stopped them from being able to move up the social ladder and be everything that they want to be.
And it's also a personal story in Snowfall, a family story. And in season 4, we got a lot of his Franklin's relationship with his father, especially, came to a head. What was it like working with Kevinroll and over the seasons and developing that relationship and that tension between them?
Wow, he is just outstanding. When we do our scenes, it's really spiritual when I work with him, and my relationship in my personal life really filters into our performances. Michael Hyatt too, who plays my mom, it's really easy to work with those guys. It's really real, and just to see how his character has developed throughout the seasons has been amazing. We found him in the pilot when he was homeless, and just walking, and Franklin looks off and he's all teary-eyed and stuff to get to the point where they're trying to reconcile their relationship. And then now to see what he's done to the business and to see what he's done to Franklin's life and his reality. It's such an amazing journey. And we don't know, we don't know if Reed's gonna pull that trigger, but the story is props to the writers, Dave Andron and co, Walter Mosley, and Kevinroll, and everyone who's brought that story to life. I think it's something that's going to be classical. I think it's something that people are going to talk about for many years to come.
And that relationship with Teddy and Franklin, it's come sort of like it's taken primacy over his family to a degree because it's so central to his business. And in the finale, it's very much Franklin having to decide between this partnership and his father. And, depending on whether Teddy did pull that trigger, what turns out to be the result of that, what do you think that would do to that relationship? Clearly nothing good, but like, how do you think that would work?
It's funny because, the epic standoff in the car lot, it wasn't intended for Franklin to ever raise his gun. And I fought and I said, no, this is the first time that he's actually going up against Reed. And he's letting him know, if you hurt my family, I'm gonna hurt you. So I think I know what Franklin's gonna do in season 5. But whatever it's going to do, it's going to be monstrous, and I think it's going to be something that's going to keep the audience on the edge of their seat, because although Franklin understands this Fredo-esque betrayal that his father's given him, deep down he still loves him, and he still remembers the times that his father was there for him when he was a kid. That's why that finale and that backstory and those moments and school and those lessons are so important to Franklin, because it's made him the man he is today. So it's going to be tragic. It's going to be tragic for Sissy. And I think Franklin's going to have to deal with that.
Yeah, and that relationship with his mother, Sissy, we see that so much, not just in the standoff scene, but also saying goodbye to her when she's about to board the plane. How chilly the sort of relationship is between him and his father, and yet like he sheds tears saying goodbye to his mother, because there's so much love and loyalty and affection there. What was it like shooting that farewell with Michael Hyatt?
The hardest thing in the world. I called Dave and John before the scene, and I text Michael Hyatt before, and I apologized beforehand because I knew I wasn't going to have control over what happened. And it was very difficult to shoot. They'd yell cut and I couldn't keep it together. I was still going, and it was really difficult, but it was the reality of the situations, because I truly do see Michael as my mother, and that's the same way I'd react if I was saying goodbye to my real mom. As kids, it's all you want to do is make your mom proud. And in that moment, I think Franklin's understood that he could no longer do that. And her leaving and getting on that plane, he knows that that's his strength that's leaving. That's his motivation that's leaving. So it was incredibly difficult to shoot. We needed a lot of tissue, but hopefully the audience are gonna feel that pain too.
And Franklin having being such a dark character in many ways, and having made the decisions and hurt the people that he has, like, is it difficult finding that humanity at moments like that, where it's like, yeah, he's still a person in difficult circumstances, and like in between a rock and a hard place a lot of the time. Like, what's it like trying to build that humanity out of someone who can be so ruthless and so cruel in many other ways?
We chase it, we chase it from the very beginning. The key word was kid, from the very first pilot. And I love stories about gangsters. I think they're incredibly interesting. And you look at from The Sopranos to Tony Montana, Corleone, American Gangster. One thing we see with those characters, they're almost at the end where they have no soul left. And I was always interested to see that journey. And I was given the opportunity to do that with Franklin. And when you look at his childlike moments, it makes his chilling moments that much more shocking. And aside with that, it also speaks closely to many young kids who are forced to do horrific things out of survival and out of the situation that they've been placed in. A lot of people in this time didn't get into the selling of this drug because they wanted to have gold chains and be violent. No, they just wanted to better their situation and raise their families out of poverty. So I think seeing that double side to Franklin is something that makes him human. It's something that makes him relatable.
And not just what was going on screen in the story. Season 4 was also must have been very difficult for a couple of behind the scenes reasons, from COVID, and also the loss of John Singleton, who created the show. How is it going into season 4 and kind of going on with the show without him?
It was incredibly difficult. I lost a an older brother who was a mentor, who taught me so much about the ins and outs of the industry, highs and lows, and you know, how everyone you meet on the way up, you're going to meet on the way down. That was something he always preached to me. And understanding that as long as you look after your community and be an activist for your community, you're always going to have a home, you know. And I use my platform in that way, and that's what John Singleton did. He taught me and us so many codes that gave us armor and made us stronger to head into season 4, with the idea of keeping up his legacy, you know, making him proud. And in relation to COVID, that was shocking. You know, we started season 4 in February 2000, and I think it was February 2020, and you know, we got to episode 4, and then they said, yeah, you guys head home. We'll see you in about 2 weeks. And 2 weeks turned into coming back in October, November. So we was incredibly happy to finish the show, and to get out there into the universe. Disney was, FX was, Hulu was. And, you know, in a time like this, entertainment is so important for many people. And the show is testimony to that. But alongside that, we mustn't forget Black Lives Matter. You know, that was something that also contributed to everyone's mind state, telling the story, keeping it in truth. I marched in the US, I went to London, I marched in London, and all of that energy I brought back into playing this character. So I think it was an incredibly tough year, but it's been beautiful to see the outcome and to see where we are today.
Not just the way the world changed in the interim, you know, between the COVID delay and returning to work. Is it just like having built that momentum over the first few episodes to kind of get back into that mindset several months later and just kind of pick up where you left off? Like how challenging was that as an actor?
It was incredibly challenging. You know, this season I walked with that cane on and off set, and during the break I tried to Day-Lewis it. I said, yeah, this is, God is challenging me to stay in this character. But I put the cane down pretty fast. And then I had to pick it back up again. You know, it contributed to script changes. That time contributed to so many things. Me looking at Franklin in a different way, me looking at the story in a different way. And in some way it actually helped, as tragic as the time was. It contributed to the art being more pure and true.
And as you mentioned, the Black Lives Matter movement, you know, like how do you process this story differently after you've experienced so much of that during the year, between the beginning of the season and shooting the end of it?
It's just all about prestige, you know. In a nutshell, it's about being respectful to Black African stories, you know, understanding that it's very important for us as a community to have a huge influence in the telling of our stories. You know, we don't always have to direct it, but we definitely have to be in the room, and we definitely have to guide it in the right direction. And I think that responsibility was something I commend many of our white creatives and people who aren't African-American or African or Black, who are in the process of making Snowfall. They understood that responsibility. They understood the sensitivity of the times. And my respect has grown for the likes of our showrunner, Dave Andron, and Tommy Shalami, and John LeBou, and the various other producers who are on the show, who understood that this is a story which is heavily about a Black experience, and together we can make it greater as long as we're respectful to the story, and as long as we guide the audience, and go on that journey with them. Many people tell me they love Snowfall because they believe someone in their family or them lived it. That's why they see the truth in the show. It's nostalgic to people of that time, and it's educational to Generation Z.
And as you mentioned, season 5 will be coming up. The show was renewed for another season. Like, how much do you know about the season coming up, or have you started getting scripts, or when do you start shooting that? What's that? Where is that in the process?
We're having a lot of conversations about it. The brilliance of this show is it's only got better as the seasons have gone, and right now the bar's really high. And we've seen many shows collapse when it gets too popular. There's more opinions. We were always quietly just kind of trudging along, but now we're in the limelight, and I think it's just about staying true to the story, staying true to the times. There's going to be heavily influence of gang warfare and the war on drugs, and hip hop is something we haven't explored yet, and pop culture. That was something Singleton always preached. This time had a huge influence on pop culture and the culture of today. So season 5 is going to stay true to that.
And looking ahead to the bigger picture of Franklin's story and his arc, do you foresee this being a tragic story about a downfall, or do you see any kind of potential for redemption in this character in the future?
No spoilers. I don't know. Whatever direction it goes in, I'm going to give my all to it. I think both stories are true. I know people who have gone on to do amazing things in a positive way, and I know people who were caught. And I think both stories is true to the story. Franklin, I will say, is a character that everyone loves. No matter what he does, he still can't help but squeeze his little cheeks. And I think whatever direction he goes in is going to be tragic or just the same.
Well, I want to congratulate you on your work on the show for all 4 seasons, and this season, especially given all the challenges that went into making it. And best of luck going into the season 5. And thank you so much for talking to me about it.
Bless you. Thank you so much, Daniel. It was amazing talking to you.